the handy rifle. Harrington and Richardson, New England Firearms. You have probably seen these rifles for decades at this point in your local pawn shops, wherever your online marketplace is. You've seen these things. A lot of times you see them as a single shot 12 gauge shotgun, maybe a slug gun, or maybe you've seen a lot of centerfire rifles. I have kind of a collection of these things. I think a lot of people see them and just kind of discount them and dismiss them as a pawn shop special or junk or something like that. I have a lot of them though because my father got me one when I was probably, I don't know, maybe 15 or 16. So sometime in the, let's see, probably 99 or 2000. And I have used these guns almost exclusively since then, and I'm 39 now, for deer hunting. And I'm going to tell you something. These things, it's one of those kind of guns where, if you know, you know. They're very good guns. The people that have them love them, and the people that have them tend to kind of collect them a little bit. And I've got a small collection of them. I've got 3. But I thought I'd go over them today and talk about them because each one of them is a little different in different ways. We're going to start with my first one. Like I said, when I was about 15 or 16, I went deer hunting with my dad, and we went to a new deer lease or deer club that had given us permission to hunt with them for a day. So it was down in Prattsville, Arkansas, and we were ground hunting, my dad and I. Dad was over here, I'm over there, I'm sitting on the ground, and all I had on me that day was a 12-gauge shotgun. Well, all I had a 12-gauge shotgun. Loaded up with, I think it was either double-aught or number 4, but I kind of felt like it was double-aught, but whatever, that didn't matter. I was sitting there on the ground, and I could hear cows mooing off in the distance. And the longer I sat there and thought about that, the more it didn't make sense to me, because I thought, there are no farms around here. I didn't see any on the way in. And, I certainly don't think we're close enough that I'd be able to hear a cow moo. But I can for sure hear cows mooing. Like a sound. And the more I thought about it, the more I thought, well, shoot. Well, if it's not a cow, what is it? What else could make that sound except That's when I realized there's a possibility there's a black bear behind me. So I just kind of sat there for a little bit, held my cool, and I could hear this thing getting closer and closer, and it was behind me, and I'm just sitting up against a tree. And all of a sudden, that thing just, I don't know if I spooked it or if my dad did because he wasn't far away from me. I don't know if he spooked it or if he saw me or what, but the bear spooked big time and took off running at a breakneck pace. And as he did, I could hear trees breaking down. Like he was just knocking shit over in the woods. He was just making a path. I heard he broke trees and they fell down into this creek that we were by. I heard all kinds of stuff falling in the water, stuff, all kinds of stuff breaking and snapping as this thing just busted out through the woods. And so I never saw it, but I asked my dad later on, I said, did you see that? Or did you hear that? He said, yeah, that was a black bear. He said, I saw it. He said, it was headed to you. It was kind of going in between us. And so I was like, okay, well, now looking back, that 12 gauge I had was probably fine for a black bear. But at the time, me as a 15 or 16-year-old kid, I told Dad, I said, you know what? I want something bigger when I'm hunting out here. I want the biggest thing, that there is. And Dad was like, well, that would probably be a 45-70. Dad had one before, and he had taken it elk hunting. He never got an elk, but that's what he took with him. We went to Colorado a couple times and tried hunting on their, I think it's their wildlife management area. He didn't use an outfitter. I don't remember how he was doing it, but he didn't get anything. But anyway, had a 45-70. And so I told Dad, I said, well, then that's what I want. I said, I want a 45-70 because if there's going to be bears coming at me out here in the woods, I want something really stout. I didn't really realize at the time that a 12 gauge already was stout enough, but whatever. Well, so that year for Christmas, I opened up all my gifts and I had a pretty good year. It was a good Christmas for me, but there was one bag left and I opened it up and it was like some candy and a movie or something like that Mom got me. But in the bottom of the bag was a bullet. And I picked it up and I said, well, Dad, one of your bullets got in here. He said, oh, yeah? Let me see that. He looked at it. He said, oh, you know what? I got something for this. And he went in the back and came back out with this gun right here. And this is a New England Firearms 45-70. And this is the gun I got when I was 16 or whatever I was. And I have used it ever since. This is a New England Firearms 45-70. Let's see. Yeah, look at that big old hole down that barrel. And I went on to kill a ton of deer with this gun. It's got open sights on it, and I started out using those for a couple of years, and then I saved up some money and got a scope mount and a scope, and I had different scopes on it for years, and then at some point I finally broke down and well, I'll tell you how this happened. This is a Leupold Rifleman scope. This is a 4-12 by 40. I love this scope, particularly this scope from Leupold, because number one, the Rifleman line, I don't even know if they have it anymore, but the Rifleman line was like their cheaper entry-level scopes. You could get them at Walmart even. I think this one may have come from Walmart. But what I like about this specific model of scope, the 4-12 by 40 has a really huge amount of eye relief. And people don't ever think about eye relief when they're buying scopes, but they really should, especially if you're going to shoot the big boomers like this 45-70. You really want a lot of good eye relief. And what eye relief is how far away can you get from this scope and still see through it. A lot of these new scopes, and I'm gonna throw out, I'm not hating on this brand, but this brand does not have anything that has good eye relief. It's Vortex. Vortex makes fine stuff, whatever. And Vortex has a really strong following, so please don't hate me. But really, this has 5 inches of eye relief. Vortex doesn't have anything that has that. So I don't have a Vortex scope on any of my stuff. If I was shooting something like a 223, maybe a 308, really, but even then, I want a lot of eye relief because I've had scope bite before and it sucks. So if I was shooting something low recoil, I'd get a Vortex. That'd be fine. As a matter of fact, I've had them before. But on something like this, it's going to have some pop to it, potentially. I want something with a lot of eye relief. And like, with a Vortex, I typically have to get up right on the scope, like right about here. But see, when I get that close to it here, I can't even see through that. I get way back here. And this is perfect. And it comes up really quick, really fast. It's just there. And when I'm hunting, that's what I want. I want my head to be able to be far away, and I want the eye box and the picture to come up quickly. So that's why I like this scope, particularly on a gun like this where, 45-70, you can get some really stout loads for 45-70. Right now, I've got it kind of put in with some Winchester 300 grain jacketed hollow point. And for the 45-70, the 300 grain jacketed hollow point, just Walmart brand stuff, not necessarily trapdoor level, but Walmart off the shelf stuff, that is just about perfect for this cartridge for deer hunting. And a lot of people will tell you it's too much for deer, it's just too much. It's really not. The 45-70 is interesting because it can be loaded up to just nuclear stuff that really is too much for deer. You can load it up like that if you want to, but the stuff that you find at Walmart, that's made for lever actions and trapdoor rifles, they're perfect for deer. Now, I actually I don't really like the Winchester 300 jacketed hollow point because I've seen this bullet too many times not expand. It'll still kill a deer just fine, but I'd rather get better bullet performance, and this ain't it. The Remington 300 grain jacketed hollow point was amazing, but for whatever reason, Remington decided to discontinue that, and they don't make it anymore. So if it were me today, I would probably get I'd probably get the Federal hammer down 300 grain jacketed. They call it a jacketed soft point, but if you look, I'm pretty sure it's a hollow point. But it's it's pretty much a fusion bullet, so it's what's the word I'm looking for? It's not copper and core bullet. It's bonded. Bonded is the word I'm looking for. It's a bonded bullet, so it's not going to have jacket separation. Should be a really good performing bullet. But honestly, like I said, even these, even though I don't care for them that much, they still work. Dad hunts with these exclusively, and he's killed a ton of deer. This is just some earplugs I had to put on here just to remind myself to put them on if I'm just going to be out shooting this thing. The handy rifles have two different types of ejectors. Well, they have an ejector and an extractor. This one happens to have an ejector. And what that means is, I'm going to put a round in here, but we're going to be real careful. I'm going to show you what this means. It means you put a cartridge in there, close it. Now, if I were to open this back up, it shoots the shell out. It just chunks it behind you. So if I'm shooting like this, and I shoot, and miss a deer, it's going to shoot that straight over my shoulder. I get a new one, I put it in, and I'm ready to go. And so there's been people that I think have passed by these rifles and like I said, discounted them, dismissed them because they think, well, single shot, I don't know. I don't think I can. Yeah, you can. You can hunt with a single shot just as easy as you can a a bolt action. But honestly, let's be real honest with ourselves. Once you shoot at a deer, that's typically it. You know, the deer, if you're hunting here in the southeast or anywhere that's wooded, you really only ever get one shot on a deer anyway, because it's going to bolt as soon as you shoot. Sometimes no. Sometimes, you know, if it's a younger deer or just a dumbass, they'll just stand there and let you shoot at them. And I've had some deer like that. And you know what? I shot at them with breakovers, and I got them anyway, because you can still work. You can work these, I would say, just as close, or, you know, just as fast as a bolt action. Maybe I'm going to give it credit. The bolt action probably is faster, but you really got to work your ass off to do it. For just a normal, you know, going as fast as you think you can do accurately and not fumble and drop the bullet and all that shit. This is probably 90% of what a bolt action can do. You're not going to miss a beat with this gun. They're really good. And also they're accurate. That's another thing. All the ones that I've had are accurate. This gun is older, so it is from when Marlin owned these companies. There was Harrington and Richardson, and New England Firearms was the two brands. And from what I can tell, the guns are essentially the exact same. You would think that maybe one brand is nicer than the other. From what I can tell, they're not. They're the exact same. Matter of fact, I think this New England Firearms, this front stock is the only difference, and I think this one looks better. It looks a little more sleek and streamlined. The Harrington and Richardson has a different forend, and I think it looks a little bulbous and stupid. But since this was made during the Marlin years, this was made in Gardner, Massachusetts. So that is essentially a Marlin gun, and it's a super good gun. Boy, don't pass these up. Of course, I shouldn't talk too much. You want to make the value of them go up. But you really don't, you know, there for a little bit, these, you know, if you wanted a breakover single shot gun, these were some of the only ones you could get. And what was cool about them was you could get them in anything from like a 223 all the way up to 500 mag and 450 Marlin and stuff. So if you wanted high horsepower rounds, but you didn't want to go buy, you know, the latest Browning A-Bolt or X-Bolt or whatever, or what, you could get a lot of power out of your cartridges with this gun and not spend a lot of money doing it. So there's that one. I don't know which one I want to go to next. We'll go to this one because I think it's another Marlin gun. This is a super nice gun, and y'all have seen it on my channel before. This is a 450 Marlin Ultra Hunter. If you notice, this one does not have sights on it. This was always meant to have a scope on it. And you may also notice I have the exact same scope on this one as I do my 4570. This is another Leupold Rifleman 4 to 12 to 40. Because again, it's got that great eye relief. And on this gun, you really do need it because unlike 4570, you can't download or you can't buy downloaded cartridges like you can with a 4570. If you get a 4570 box of ammo from Walmart, it's going to have ammo that's kind of loaded down. 450 Marlin is never loaded down, and that honestly is kind of one problem with it. The 450 Marlin is such an interesting little failure to me. It's kind of like my little baby or something. I kind of feel like I have to defend this thing all the time. I like the 450 Marlin. I can't really tell you why it's great though, or why it's better than anything else, because it's really not. It is an answer to a question not a whole lot of people were asking. People are right when they say that. But it still works. The reason this was made, the reason the 450 Marlin was made was because the 4570 is so old at this point that the guns that were out when it was created can only shoot loads of a certain pressure, right? And it's normally a pretty low pressure. But as time went on, we started making guns a lot stronger. Our metallurgy got a lot better. And so we found out that if you take a 4570 and load it to a higher pressure, you can really get some hot-ass loads out of it. You can really get some incredible ballistics out of it. But the problem is these new rounds and new loads would blow up those older guns that came out in the late 1800s, these trapdoors and stuff, for the 4570. So the 4570, you kind of have to know what you're doing, or you at least have to be aware of that so that you don't put a modern load in an old gun and blow the damn thing up. So, of course, lawyers don't like this. So Marlin took this gun and this cartridge, and this was their answer to that issue. Because the 450 Marlin is equal to some of those hottest 4570 loads just from the rip, and you can just buy them from the factory like this, and they'll only go into guns that can handle it. There's no way in hell you could put this in an old gun and blow it up, because this wasn't around that long ago. It wasn't around. This cartridge isn't old enough to be able to go into guns that can blow it up. So that's on paper, that's why it was created. But there are other benefits to this round, but they were never utilized, and I don't really know why. So this was based off of something called the 458 by 2-inch American. And what that means is they took a 458 Win Mag, which is this cartridge, but like longer, right? It goes from here to here. A lot longer. They took a 458 Win Mag and just shortened it down to 2 inches. They shortened the case down to 2 inches long. And made it the same length as a 4570 and called it good. Marlin wanted to make this cartridge semi-spec and wide, because the 458 by 2-inch American was a wildcat, right? Meaning people were making it in their backyards. They weren't selling it at Walmart. They weren't selling it anywhere. It wasn't SANY recognized. This is. They wanted to make something that was commercially viable, so they made this. And that since the 458 Win Mag, there's like a whole family of those, and they've all got this little belt at the bottom. You see the belt? Yeah. Oh, wait a minute. There. See that belt at the bottom? That little thing right here? That whole family has these belts, and they all have the same diameter back here on the rim. So it was possible that you could put a 458 by 2-inch American in something, I think like maybe a 375 H&H mag, or 375, I don't know what, some kind of mag, and it would actually blow up the gun. This was the problem they were trying to get rid of. So what they did was they made this belt a little thicker. They made that belt a little bit taller than on, say, a 7mm mag or a 458 Win Mag. They made it a little bit taller. That way, when it's going in, if it's a gun that is not chambered for 450 Marlin, it won't be able to go in. But in a gun that's chambered for it, it'll go in perfect. But since this is based on the 458 Win Mag, They could have made bolt actions out of this real easy. And Marlin had bolt action guns at the time. It was the XL7 or something like that, or not an XR7, because that's a Mercury. But I think it was called the XL7. They had bolt action rifles that were based on Remington's action that could have handled these just fine. But they didn't do it, and no one else did either. And I don't know why. I don't know if it's because the pressure was too high or what, but this bolt face, or this rim, matches a lot of bolt faces really easy, but they never did it. Steyr made a rifle that was a bolt action 450 Marlin. They are rare as hen's teeth, and if you find one, they're going to be expensive. I don't know why nobody else ever did it. So there are some benefits to this cartridge, the 450 Marlin, but they're kind of odd, and they're kind of things that people don't normally think about anyway. Number one being that you don't have to worry about blowing a gun up if you got a 450 Marlin. And number two, if you wanted to build your own custom bolt action 4570, it can be done, but it would be easier just to get a 450 Marlin bolt action rifle. You can build your own. You can take a Savage 110, I think, Savage 110. Since Savage has the barrel nut system, you can undo that nut, take the barrel out, and you can buy a 450 Marlin barrel from like EAB or ER Shaw, something like that, and you can build a Savage 450 Marlin bolt action. Really easy. And again, if it's easy enough that I can do it in my kitchen here at home, I don't know why you wouldn't be able to do it. Or I don't know why the factory can't do it. But yeah, all you have to do is get a gun chambered in like 300 Winchester short mag, I think, is one of them. You can get that gun, and then you can just swap the barrel out, and you're fine. You're almost good to go. Because there's nothing, the bolt face doesn't have to be machined, nothing. All you got to do is find a bolt face that matches the 450 specs, change the barrel out, you're good to go. It'll fit in the mag, everything. So that's the 450 Marlin. But let's also talk about this gun. This is this is a Harrington and Richardson, and this is also made in Gardner, Massachusetts. So I'm going to guess this is also a Marlin made gun. The Ultra Hunters were really nice little guns. These are not anything that you would look at and think that's a pawn shop special. These have a nice hardwood laminate stock, and they're a little bit unbalanced, but that's because the butt back here is super heavy, and I want to say there's like a rod of mercury or something back here. There's some kind of metallic something in here that is a recoil reducer. And so the extra weight and then that rod, whatever it is, really helps tame this 450 Marlin, because I'm going to tell you, as much as I sometimes defend the 450 Marlin a little bit, and I'll take up for it, at the same time, I will say, if you were me, and you're in the Southeast, and you pretty much just hunt deer, and that's all you do, man, the 450 Marlin is a little bit much. If you think you're really gonna, really see a humongous 250-pound buck or something, the 450 Marlin is a little bit, would be something you could use. But if you're just out there hunting, you know, like normal, there's a little bit of water in here. I'm going to clean that. I'm going to talk about that here in a minute too on my other one. But if you think you're really going to see some heavy-duty deer, then maybe a 450 Marlin is fine for you. You can get the Lever Evolution from Hornady. They do still make it, but I think they only do it in like little batches every year, the 450 Marlin. I don't think they have quite abandoned it, although I did notice that this year when I was looking for ammo for this thing, there's none out there. That's kind of scary and a little bit sad, because we all like to think that every time a cartridge comes out, it's going to be supported just forever. But this might be the only gun I've got that might actually get, might actually become reloads only, because the factory ammunition is really drying up, and I'm not going to pay $6 or $7 a round like on Gunbroker. I'm just not going to do that. But again, I do think Hornady still makes the Lever Evolution ammo for this gun. They just do it in small batches. So when you do see it at the gun shops, if you've got one of these, you might want to go ahead and pick it up, at least just to have the brass around, because that's normally how I get brass. I just buy factory, shoot it, and then when I'm done, I just reload it. But this is a super nice gun, and I took a deer with it the other day because I realized that I've had this gun for about 5 years now, and I've never even taken it hunting. So I took it hunting this year and got a deer the other day. And my opinions on the 450 Marlin haven't changed as far as deer hunting goes. It is still a little bit much. It's a little bit much, but whatever. I was using the 350 grain flat soft point from Hornady, which Hornady doesn't make that at all anymore. They don't even make that in special runs. That's gone. That is gone. And so those, you'll find, I really shouldn't have even been shooting it, because if you find that on Gunbroker, those are like $8 or $9 a shot. It's ridiculous. But anyway, I love oddball stuff. So I really like the 450 Marlin, and I really like these Ultra Hunters. I would like to get an Ultra Hunter in 25-06 because those had 26-inch barrels, and that's hard to find too. Everybody online says that the 25-06 is amazing, but only if you've got a 26-inch barrel. Well, those are hard to find. I bought a Tikka the other day, or a couple years ago, that had like a 20-inch barrel, maybe 22, but certainly not 26. A Savage Axis, you can get them in 25-06, but they're like a 22-inch barrel. If you got to have a 26-inch barrel, 25-06, you need to be looking for one of these. Handy Rifle Ultra Hunter. Now, I'm going to set this up here. So if I mentioned that this had a little bit of water on it. So while I was talking, I went and got a paper towel and kind of got it off there. And when I'm done with this, I'm probably going to take it apart and wipe it down with an oil rag, because I don't want to happen to it what happened to my last handy rifle, which is this one right here. This is a handy rifle in 444 Marlin, which is not quite as much of an oddball as the 450 Marlin, but it is an oddball. This gun is different because this one was made in Ilion, New York. And the reason for that is because this gun happened to be made during the window when Remington bought Marlin and made a few handy rifles. So this is actually a Remington Marlin handy rifle, chambered in 444. And this is the fore-end I was talking about with the Harrington and Richardsons. It's a little bit, it's not quite as sleek looking as the New England Firearms. I like this forearm a lot more than I do this one. Just on a pure looks basis, I think it just looks better. I don't like this one that much. But anyway, this gun is a lot lighter. For shooting something as heavy duty as the 444, you can really tell when you're shooting it that this gun is light. Now, it makes it really good for hunting. As a matter of fact, of these three, I might like this one the best just for hunting, just because it is so light. Now, it kicks the hardest, so as far as going to the range and shooting, I don't like this one much at all. It's not fun to shoot at all. It hurts after like 2 or 3 rounds. I don't want to shoot it anymore. But this one has what I call an ejector, or it has an extractor, not an ejector. So we're going to be real careful, but I'm going to load this one up. This is the 450 or 444 Marlin cartridge. There you go. It's kind of interesting looking because you can tell it's skinnier than these other two, but it's also a little bit longer. This is essentially a 44 Magnum stretched. Like, it kind of is and kind of isn't. They started with that idea, I think, but this has more of a taper, I think, than a 44 Magnum. Anyway, where I was going is, let me show you this. If I were to load this up and then open it again, this one does not shoot the shell out behind me like the other two do. This one has more of an extractor, not an ejector. So if you're shooting with this one, you do have to remember that if you're going to try to get a follow-up in, you're going to have to work a little bit harder. I like the ejectors in these other two better than the extractor. But some people like this better. Some people like this better because it's easier for them to keep up with their brass. I guess if you're shooting at the range, this is better. If you're hunting, these other two are better for follow-up shots. Something I have noticed on this gun is that the finish on it is a lot worse than the Marlin guns. Case in point, when I talked about the water that I saw on my 450 Marlin just now, I got rid of it immediately because this gun right here, I was hunting with it one day and it was kind of raining, but I was in a blind, so I wasn't getting super wet. But this did have a little bit of water, just a few drops, right along here on the barrel. And when I got done hunting, I put the gun up in a case, like a zip-up rifle case. And I went home. And I did not immediately bring the gun in and clean it. I thought, well, because I had something to do. And I was like, well, I left that in the truck. Well, shoot, well, I'll get it later tonight because, I've got stuff to do and I'll just come back to it. It was only like 4 or 5 hours. But I came back and this gun, all this right here was just rusted. It completely had surface rust all over it. And I was kind of pissed because, these other two, this 4570, as I said, I have hunted with this for over 20 years at this point, maybe even like 25 years. It never has had that problem, and I've never really had rust on it. At one point, it did kind of get a patina here on the receiver, not necessarily rust, but you know how metal will just kind of get a sheen on it or something, like a red purple sheen. It started to get that, and I took some CLP and got rid of it. But as far as just, flash rust or anything, no, this has never had that at all. And I don't know about this 450 Marlin Ultra Hunter, but I'm going to assume it shouldn't have that problem because this has this has the nicest finishing of any of these. It's got a nice gloss blue here. It's got a really nice bluing on the barrel. Whereas my 4570 here is a little bit rougher. You can tell it's a little more in the raw than the 450 Marlin. This gun, however, had flash rust, just, very bad, and not from just, I wouldn't consider that abuse that I gave this gun, but it's still rusted. But it is an interesting, handy rifle because I don't see this camo stock much, and I don't see this stainless steel or Cerakote or whatever this is. I don't see this color receiver very much either. This scope is a Redfield scope. I don't really know what it is. It's hard to find Redfields anymore, if at all. I don't know what it is. But Redfields were pretty much Leopolds for a time. And this is one of them. And this one also has really good eye relief, just like the others. But it does have a bigger lens in the front. So this is probably more like a... If those were 40s, this is probably a 50 or something. I don't know. But it also has really good eye relief. Like, naturally, here's where my head goes on the butt. But I could even go further back right here, and I can still see just fine through that scope. And again, that's what's great about these scopes, especially on these hard-kicking single-shot rifles. You want something with a lot of eye relief. And nobody ever talks about eye relief. And I even had a guy at Bass Pro get fucking pissed at me one time. He worked behind the counter. He got pissed because he was a big, I guess, a Vortex fan. And this guy was talking about wanting a scope. And this guy was talking to him about scopes and telling him that Vortex is the best scopes ever made and blah, blah, blah. And they're this, they're that, they're the other. And, I guess maybe I shouldn't have, but I chimed in a little bit and said, well, for me, I really like Leupold because you can get certain models of theirs that have really good eye relief. And on other scopes, you can't get that. Namely, Vortex doesn't have that. I've just noticed every Vortex scope I look at, they don't have much eye relief. They've got maybe, 2 inches, maybe 3 inches at the most. Well, that salesman got absolutely pissed at me. And it's like, I'm not hurting your sales. You can sell this guy a Leupold as easy as you could as you could sell him a Leupold as easy as you could a Vortex. I'm just giving the guy my opinion. And that guy wasn't mad either. He was like, oh, okay, eye relief, oh, whatever. Well, this salesman was getting absolutely pissed. And every scope that the salesman tried to show this guy, I would look at it and I'm like, just an inch from the scope. And he said it was going on something like this. It was going on a big 4570 or something like that. And I told him, I said, I wouldn't do it because you're going to get scope bite really bad. That salesman got pissed at me. He got pissed at me and said he knew what he was talking about, and blah, blah, blah. And I wasn't being a real smart ass, but I was like, well, I'm sorry, I just don't want to get scoped by it, you know. And that guy got real mad and just acted like he knew what he was talking about, and I didn't. You know, I never said he didn't know what he's talking about. He might know what he's talking about, I don't know. But I know what I'm talking about too, and I've shot these guns for over 25 years, or for about 25 years, like I said, and I know that I want something with a lot of eye relief because I had a muzzleloader that I did get scope bite from, and it's a bitch. But anyway, so I'm happy with this collection. I'm proud of it because I've got 2 Marlins and a Remington, which is weird. This Remington was made in Ilion, New York. The other 2 in Gardner, Massachusetts. You know, they're all the big bores. 4570, 444, 450 Marlin. You know, I've got a Harrington and Richardson. I got an NEF. I got nice scopes on all of them. They're all different. They've all got different stocks. They've all got different finishes. But this one, I do really like this one, despite the fit and finish on it being not great. All of these shoot. This thing right here at 50 yards will almost make just one hole. It's a really good shooting gun. And the 444, when I first got it, I was kind of like, you know, I know it'll work, but I'm also kind of like, you know, 45s, you know, you want 45, you don't want a 42. Why would you want a 42? Because it's just, you know, people hear 44, they think it's a 44. No, this is actually a 4.29, or I'm sorry, a .429 caliber bullet. So it's a 42, which is why I think the 41 mag is an absolute useless cartridge, because you've already got a 42 mag and the 44 mag. Why would you have a 41 mag? It's ridiculous. It's like just a little bit less. Anyway, so when I first got it, I was like, I really just got this gun for the curiosity of it. This is a Gander Mountain gun, and Gander Mountain was going out of business, and they sold this gun for cheap. So I asked for it for Christmas, got it. But I really just kind of got it to add to my collection. I didn't really get it because I wanted to hunt with it. But once I didn't want to hunt with it because I'm like 42. I've got 2 45s. You know, in the 45 70. It's got so much more ammo choices and stuff. Let's do that. Let me tell you something. This bad boy right here is a son of a bitch. The best shot I have ever made on a deer in my life was with this gun right here. A buck walked out on me at 190 plus yards. So somewhere, you know, give or take 5 or 10 yards. It could have been 200 yards for all I know. But when I stepped it off, I got to 192 or 193. That's a long shot for a damn 444 straight wall cartridge. But this thing hit. I got the deer, and not only did it hit the deer, it dropped it in its tracks. And I hit the deer because the deer was facing me even. It wasn't even a broadside shot. I had to think a lot about how and where I was going to aim. And I just happened to know this cartridge and rifle well enough to take that shot. The deer was facing me, and he had his head down, eating. That was important because I knew as long as I put my crosshairs on its back, the bullet will drop into the deer. And since he had his head down on the ground, I knew that even if the bullet dropped all the way down to the ground, I'd still get a headshot. Most likely. But I knew it wasn't going to drop that much. But let's say worst case it did, it'd still hit it. And I knew my left and right was on perfect. I shot this deer, and it hit right behind, had his head down, angled that way. It hit right here behind his jaw, and then came out right in front of the shoulder on the other side, and it blew it apart. This little bullet right here, and this is the Hornady Superformance. I don't like the Lever Evolution bullets, the FTX bullets, because they kind of just blow up on impact, and you get jacket separation and all kinds of stuff. I'd much rather have a 300 grain semi-jacketed hollow point. I'd rather have a Remington Core-Lokt 300 grain is what I'd like to have, or a Federal Fusion 300 grain jacketed hollow point. But this right here is the Hornady Superformance 265 grain, and this is a bad dude. And with this being not a hollow point, with it being a flat point, I was kind of like, I don't know. I don't want it to just punch through the deer and not do anything. I want it to expand a little bit so we can get some damage in there. Dude, this thing opened right up, no problems. It split that deer's neck open over here. Deer dropped instantly. Instantly. Matter of fact, when I shot, I thought I had a clean miss because the deer disappeared from my scope. Just absolutely disappeared. And I thought, well, he's gone. I shot, he's gone. What it wasn't that he was gone, but he was gone because he dropped. As soon as I hit, as soon as I pulled the trigger, that deer just dropped onto the ground dead. And so I have been very impressed with the 444 Marlin, and I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that that smaller bullet is going a lot faster than these other two. I have come to a conclusion that I think I agree with Roy Weatherby on deer hunting. I think speed kills. Because I've hunted with the other cartridge that I've hunted with a lot over the last 20-some odd years is a 30-06. And I always hunted with 150 grain core locked through 30-06. And you want to talk now, these 45s and 44s, they kill deer every single time. They do it every single time. But for my money, the cartridge that drops them in their tracks, dead right there, DRT, bang flop, is my 30-06 with 150 grain. It hits so fast, I don't know why. I don't know if it's sending a shock wave. I've read that it sends like a hydrostatic shock to the brain and it just immediately drops them. I don't know what, but I know that this cartridge here hitting a little bit faster, I think it works really well. I've killed quite a few deer at this point with this 444, even though I've only had it for about 5 years. Really good gun, really good cartridge, but I like all of them. I like all of them. And I did get a deer with the 450 Marlin the other day. And I was reminded, there's a story behind this gun too. I had this exact gun just about years ago. I had a 300 Weatherby mag, Weatherby Vanguard, and I could not get that thing to shoot. Couldn't get it to shoot, and I was spending $80 per box of ammo. This is back in the 2000s. So it was a lot of money. It'd be over $100 today per box. I was spending $80 per box trying to get that thing to shoot. I tried, started out with a BSA scope. That didn't last long. Tried a Leupold scope, which is the scope that eventually wound up on my 4570. That's how I found out about these 4 to 12 by 40 scopes, because I was trying to find a scope that would work on a 300 Weatherby mag. So I got a Leupold because they're supposed to be shockproof. So that's why I got it. But I could not get that gun to shoot at all. I sent it back to Weatherby twice. They sent it back to me with no explanation of any kind. Both times, Weatherby was actually really horrible to do business with because they just didn't give a shit, apparently. But I got rid of that gun, and I traded even for a 450 Marlin Ultra Hunter, just like this one. And I hunted with it for a little bit, and I killed a couple deer with it. But both times that I killed a deer, I was using the Lever Evolution, and my God, it just tore the deer all to shit. Unlike a 4570 that hits pretty slow, it's a big bullet hitting real slow. This is a big bullet going real fast. You know, like 4570 might have a 405 grain bullet going maybe 1,300 feet per second. This could probably do 405 grain bullet, you know, I don't know, 19 or 2,000 feet per second. It's a lot more powerful than your off-the-shelf 4570 loads. This is hot shit right here. Now you can load 4570 up. If you're a reloader, you can load it up even hotter than this. But just off the shelf, box to box from the factory, this is some really, really hot shit right here. And I killed a couple deer with that gun, and both times that I did, it just absolutely just tore the deer up too much. And so I sold that gun to my cousin, and then a couple of years later, I wanted that gun back, and he'd already sold it because he never used it. So a few years ago, I decided to get another one of these, and I found this online, I think Gunbroker, and I bought this. And this was the first year I took it out hunting. And even using this 350 grain jacketed soft point load, even using this load right here, it still is a little much for deer. Because the deer that I shot yesterday, it was a broadside shot, and I hit right behind the shoulder, a little, you know, right where you're supposed to hit. And it did fine, actually. The deer dropped, it was fine, everything was great. I didn't lose any meat at all. But, man, even the entrance hole on that deer was almost like the bullet hit thing expanded already. It had like a half-inch hole going in. And then going out, it was probably 3/4 of an inch to an inch. And it had actually, the shockwave had pulled some of the guts out the exit hole on the other side of the deer. That's a lot. I've never seen that before. My dad said he's seen it with a 30-06, 180 grain before he blew a deer's heart out one time. I don't know. I've never seen that before, but this did that the other day. And it kind of reminded me of why I got rid of the 450 Marlin to begin with, because it's for deer hunting and stuff. It really is almost a little too much. But the good news is, before long, I'm going to have to start reloading this since the ammo's getting harder to find. So I can always reload it down to, you know, the 45-70 levels that I like, which is 405 grain bullet going 1,300 feet per second, or a 300 grain going like 1,800 feet per second, something like that. I can load it down if I want to. And the good news is I've got about 100 rounds back there in the safe, so I've got plenty of brass that should last me forever. And the 450 Marlin has a stronger case than the 45-70, so it should be good to reload numerous times. But anyway, guys, I've talked about these things so much at this point. What am I at? 46 minutes. Good Lord. So, yeah, that's my collection. I love these things, and if you can't tell, I really like the big bore straight wall cartridges. I'm really interested in the 400 Legend that just came out. Honestly, the 350 Legend looked to me in some of the videos like it's a really good deer killer. Everybody talks about the 6.5 Creedmoor. All the videos I see of deer getting hit with the 6.5 Creedmoor, they run for 100 yards and then they die. That's kind of like a 243 to me. I don't know if I want that. But the 350 Legend, every time I see videos of that, those deer are dropping right on the spot. And I can only assume that a 400 Legend is that plus a little more. So I really like the sound of the 400 Legend, and I really would not mind having an AR based in that. And I'm not even an AR nut. I don't really give a crap about ARs at all. I grew up with them, and they're not a big deal to me. But, yeah, there we go. I'm trying to think if there's any other. I would like to try one time. It was like a 405 Winchester. That's a really old cowboy cartridge. I'd like to shoot one of those one day. But as far as the handy rifles, like I said, you know, they're all great, and you'd be surprised at the differences between all of them. Because just picking these up to show you guys, I can tell you without a doubt this is the lightest one. And that 450 and the Ultra Hunter is absolutely the heaviest, which is good for recoil. But this is better for if I'm just in the woods walking around. This is a really handy gun. Oh, one more thing that I forgot to add. The reason I like these guns so much, these little single shots, is that they're very efficient in their barrel length. Everybody looks at these things and thinks that they've got like an 18-inch barrel on them. That's not true. This is a 22-inch barrel. 22. The reason it looks so short is because since it's a single shot, it does not require an action. So there's no bolt to throw, there's no lever to work. It's all barrel, and it's all right here. So the gun overall is a lot shorter than a 22-inch barreled bolt action or a 22-inch lever action. It's a lot shorter. That's why it's called the handy rifle. That's where it gets its name from. Really handy, really great shooting guns. Don't be scared to get it to hunt with a single shot. You can make follow-up shots just as quick as you can with a bolt action, especially if you've got one with the ejector, the one that shoots it out over your shoulder. Perfect. Perfect for hunting. These are really good little guns. They're great. The trigger's not great, and they're kind of hard to work on. They're kind of hard to do a trigger job on them. Man, I've never had don't worry about it. I don't give a shit. I'm not a trigger snob, though. If you are, maybe you won't like it, but to me, I don't care. I get out there and I make it happen with these things. So there you go. That's my handy rifle collection. These things are great. And Henry is making single shots now. And of course, you can also get a Ruger #1. They still make those. And you can get a Ruger #1 in 450 Marlin if you wanted. But the Ruger #1s are hard to find. I've never seen one in the wild. I hear about them online, but I've never seen one in person. I've never seen one in a shop. I don't know anybody that owns one. Henry, those seem to be nice guns, but you can't get them in the wide range of calibers that you could these handy rifles. These handy rifles, man, you can get 35 Whelen, you can get 708, 7mm 08, you can get 223, you can get all 25-06 with a 26-inch barrel. You can get all kinds of cool stuff in these handy rifles. If there's a cartridge that you've always wanted to try, chances are you can get them in these. I've even seen 300 Blackout handy rifles with that people have put suppressors on. Pretty neat. So yeah, the Henrys are cool, and they seem to be great little rifles. They probably are. I think all breakovers are. But at the same time, I think you can only get just 4 or 5 cartridges in it. I think maybe, I know 4570, and I don't even know what the others are. But yeah, you're kind of limited to your choices with them. Whereas these handy rifles, they made them for a long time. And you can see they made them in all kinds of different flavors. And that's why I think they're good for collecting, because you can get so many different kinds. You can get them from Remington, you can get the Marlin ones, you can get the H&R, you can get the NEF, you can get big ones, you can get small ones, you can get cheap ones, you can get expensive ones. So, y'all have a great day. Good luck out in the woods this year. Y'all stay safe. And we'll see you later. Bye.